My name is Reyes-Garcia, U.S. History since 1877, final research project, the Holocaust and World War II. The Holocaust is a horrendous event in human history. The Holocaust, carried out by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party during World War II, saw the execution of approximately 6 million Jews. Begin quote. The date that has become commonly associated with the start of the Holocaust is January 30th, 1933, the day on which Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. End quote. Hitler formally became the Chancellor of Germany on the 30th of January. Hitler openly had anti-Semitic views, and many people recognize this from his earlier publication of the book he wrote called Mein Kampf. The Nazi Party's anti-Semitism stand was based on lies that they had power over the world government and had caused Germany to lose the war during World War I. Begin quote. The Nazis falsely accused Jews of causing Germany's social, economic, political, and cultural problems. In particular, they blamed them for Germany's defeat in World War I. End quote. The first concentration camp to open up was in Dachau. Begin quote. The first of a network of concentration camps opened in Dachau, just outside Munich. Many of the first prisoners sent here were communists or political opponents of the regime, but Dachau's main camp and branches would evolve into a place where over 200,000 people were sent, including thousands of Jews and other minorities. End quote. This began the first steps towards the persecution of Jews. In the year 1934, begin quote, Hitler combines the positions of Chancellor and President to become Führer, or leader of Germany. End quote. By the end of 1934, Hitler had amassed enough power to have complete and total control over the entire country and had nothing in place to stop him from achieving his Jewish free world. In 1935, the Nazis had introduced the Nuremberg Laws, which further separated the Jewish and German population. Begin quote. Marriage and sex between Jews and persons with German or related blood was forbidden by the law for the protection of German blood and German honor. End quote. This was one of many laws in the Nuremberg Laws that was used to discriminate against the Jews. By the beginning of the war in 1939, Hitler had invaded Poland, and multiple countries had declared war on Germany on September 3rd, 1939. The United States had yet to declare war upon Germany as its attacks had not occurred. By 1941, Germany had attacked the Soviet Union in an attempt to squash their rivalry and hatred for the communist state. Germany then created the Einsatzgruppen. 4 German mobile killing squads had been made and sent out to slaughter Jews. Begin quote. The Einsatzgruppen gathered Jews town by town, marched them to huge pits dug earlier, stripped them, lined them up, and shot them with automatic weapons. The dead and dying would fall into the pits to be buried in mass graves. In the infamous Babi Yar massacre near Kiev, 30,000 to 35,000 Jews were killed in 2 days. In addition to their operations in the Soviet Union, the Einsatzgruppen conducted mass murders in eastern Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. It is estimated that by the end of 1942, the Einsatzgruppen had murdered more than 1.3 million Jews. End quote. By the end of 1941, begin quote, Jews in Roma were gassed to death in vans at Chelmno, 30 miles from Lodz. Chelmno was the first so-called killing center or extermination camp of the 6 to become operational. The others were Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka, Majdanek, and Auschwitz. The sole purpose of these camps was to ensure efficient mass murder. Around half of the Jews confined to the Lodz ghetto since 1940 were deported to and murdered at Chelmno before the end of the war. End quote. Japan, Hitler's few allies of the Axis power, had staged an attack against the United States at Pearl Harbor in an attempt to seize control of the island of Hawaii. This attack was the first attack on America that involved the United States into World War II. The United States, now involved in the war, initiated a rapid mobilization of troops to fight the Axis powers. In 1942, the United States and Great Britain had devised a plan to put an end to the war. During this time, the Wannsee Conference had been held, and an Endlösung, the final solution, was devised on how to slaughter the inferior Jewish population as Hitler had seen it. Their plan was to kill 11 million Jews every year, which at the time would have killed every single Jew in Europe, as it is believed that there was approximately 9.7 million Jews in Europe. In 1943, begin quote, Heinrich Himmler, chief architect of the final solution, issued an order to liquidate all ghettos and transfer remaining Jewish inhabitants to concentration camps with the intention that they be killed. Over the following years, ghettos are liquidated, their residents are deported to camps or shot. End quote. Begin quote. In January 1944, General Dwight Eisenhower was appointed commander of Operation Overlord. In the months and weeks before D-Day, the Allies carried out a massive deception operation intended to make the Germans think the main invasion target was Pas de Calais, the narrowest point between Britain and France, rather than Normandy. In addition, they led the Germans to believe that Norway and other locations were also potential invasion targets. Many tactics were used to carry out the deception, including fake equipment, a phantom army commanded by George Patton and supposedly based in England, across the Pas de Calais, double agents, and fraudulent radio transmissions. End quote. Operation Overlord, better known as D-Day, was an assault by American and British troops on the beaches of Normandy to gain an in on the German-occupied territories. On June 6, 1944, thousands of paratroopers and glider troopers had gained entry behind enemy lines, and soldiers carried by ships had stormed the beaches. Begin quote. The British and Canadians overcame light opposition to capture beaches codenamed Gold, Juno, and Sword, as did the Americans at Utah Beach. U.S. forces faced heavy resistance at Omaha Beach, where there were over 2,000 American casualties. However, by day's end, approximately 156,000 Allied troops had successfully stormed Normandy's beaches. According to some estimates, more than 4,000 Allied troops lost their lives in the D-Day invasion, with thousands more wounded or missing. End quote. After 5 days of heavy assaults on the beaches, all beaches were effectively taken over. Begin quote. By the end of August 1944, the Allies had reached the Seine River. Paris was liberated, and the Germans had been removed from northwestern France, effectively concluding the Battle of Normandy. The Allied forces then prepared to enter Germany, where they would meet up with Soviet troops moving in from the east. End quote. By the end of 1944, the Allies had successfully made their way towards Germany. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler had committed suicide, and by May 8th, the war was over. Fighting did not stop there, however. In August 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, one on Hiroshima, August 6th, and one on Nagasaki, August 9th. These bombings resulted in 130 to 230,000 Japanese citizens losing their lives. This was the first time any country had used a nuclear weapon in war and had done 2 things. And this had resulted in 2 things. The dropping of these nuclear weapons of mass destruction officially ended World War II and had begun the Cold War.